Hi everyone, welcome to Miss Adams Teaches Poetry. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Nothing's Changed by Tatamkhulu Afrika. This video is going to focus on the content, the context, and the form. So great for your revision, so get those flashcards ready. There is a video coming your way that is going to look at 5 key quotes. So if you haven't subscribed, please click that button now, and then you'll get a notification of when the next video is ready. But for now, let's get started. So what is this poem about? This is another autobiographical poem in the series. Tatamkhulu Afrika is returning to a place called District 6, and it's the first time he's been back there since the apartheid has been abolished. And what he does is he walks through the town and he looks at a restaurant and he reflects upon a kind of cafe, looks at the kind of differences. And as he's kind of walking around, he has the realization that despite apartheid having been abolished, the segregation is still there, the racism is still there, the discrimination is still there, and he reflects upon the fact that nothing has changed. The context is obviously quite important in this one, so there are quite a few things to take you through. So apartheid was a system of racial segregation that took place in South Africa. It began in 1948 and it was abolished in 1990s-ish, the sort of early period. I've written ish because it's not like one day everything changed. It took a number of years for all of the different laws to be changed and for there to sort of there be some change effected. And that's quite important because Edexcel cites that this poem was written in 1994, maybe published. But what's interesting is that Afrika has said that he can't really quite remember exactly when he wrote it, but it was certainly at a time where apartheid had been abolished, but it was still very, very early days. Now, I mentioned before about District 6. So Cape Town, during the apartheid, was separated out into different districts. And then there was enforced segregation in terms of who could live in them. So it wasn't like areas. District 6 itself was set aside as a place for only white people. That meant if there was anyone non-white living in the area, they were shipped out and shipped off to different people, and that includes Tatamkhulu Afrika, although it's a little more complicated, which I'll get to in a moment. He was very much fighting against apartheid. He joined the ANC, which is obviously Nelson Mandela's group, and at one point he was actually arrested for terrorism, which is essentially his political activities, and he was in the same prison as Nelson Mandela. And it was actually because of that arrest that he was granted the name that you see in front of you on this slide, Tatamkhulu Afrika, because actually he's had several names. He was born of Egyptian and Turkish heritage, but he was that his parents died very tragically when he was young from the flu, and so he was adopted. And when he was adopted by the family in South Africa, he was given a white identity and named John. And it was only later on in life that he was told that he was adopted and actually his heritage wasn't white South African. So I said it was quite complicated about when he left District 6. But the fact is that he actually could have continued living in District 6 as a white person in South Africa, but he said, no, that's not my heritage, that's not who I am, and I don't want to be a part of that. And so he left then. And so when he was arrested and put into prison for terrorism, the lasting punishment when he was released is that he wasn't allowed to write or speak publicly for 5 years, which is a sign of what his sort of terrorism was probably about. It was about actually limiting his voice. And so whilst he was there, he was given this code name of Tatamkhulu Afrika, and it was granted to him by the ANC, and that means Grandfather Africa, which I think is just wonderful, and it's such a kind of demonstration of who he was and how powerful his voice was. So going back to something I said before, it is an autobiographical poem. It is talking about the moment that he entered District 6 after all that time. And there was that part of him that was looking to see something different, some kind of sign that there had been change. And unfortunately, he sees all of the same signs of discrimination and segregation, which is why the poem is called Nothing's Changed. Couple of notes on form. This is nice and easy, the form here, easy to remember. The most important thing to be aware of is that it is written in free verse, okay? So you don't have to worry about, oh, you know, what stresses the syllables are, because there's no rhyme scheme, there's no regularity in meter. It's free verse. We've got 7 stanzas, they're all different lengths. You know, some of our stanzas are incredibly small, like this one here, just a 2-line stanza demonstrating massive significance. You'll notice as well that there is loads of enjambment in this poem. Run online, you know, just have a little look at this bit where you know, take it with you, eat it at a plastic tabletop, the enjambment there. So I think really what is happening with the form here is this is about breaking rules and about expressing yourself freely, which I think was obviously very important to Africa. That there was a kind of way of saying, here are the kind of set boundaries, but no, let's break them, you know, let's be free. And I think also the enjambment and the free verse does allow for a slightly kind of more like ranting tone. I think it allows for the kind of angry tone. And then the only other thing that I'm going to say to you about form is about the cyclical structure. If you notice, the poem is called Nothing's Changed and it ends with Nothing's Changed. That's what we call a cyclical structure. Okay, so where it begins is where it ends. And of course, that is so powerful because from beginning to end of poem, that's right, nothing has changed. So it is wildly mimetic of the message that he is putting out there and explaining his anger and his disappointment for it. That's it from me. Sorry, slightly longer than 5 minutes. Thank you very much for watching. Do keep your eyes peeled. In the next day or so, there'll be another presentation coming your way that looks at 5 major quotes from Nothing's Changed as well, so you can tie them up together. Any questions, drop me a line in the comments and I will get back to you. Thank you so much again. Happy revising.